You probably know that the most important part of any audio system is the speakers. This is the Klipsch speaker here. It's been a well-respected name for over 25 years. You're getting real value for your money here.
Oh?
These are horn-loaded both in the mid-range and the high frequency, so they provide for the greatest amount of efficiency. I think you'll hear that you can get that full sound you want just by adding a set of these speakers.
Won't I need a bigger amplifier?
No, not at all. Let me show you. A cleaner sound for the background music while in your dining room, and you'll get less distortion than with your present system when you turn up the gain for higher sound levels.
That's incredible.
Always a good time, gentlemen. Always a good time.
It's a classic.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'd like to thank everybody out there that's watching. You are in the listening lounge. I'd like to introduce my fellow cellmates, maybe. Roy mentioned bail earlier, so we may have to take up a collection. First and foremost, we have Klipsch legend Mark Cassavant. We have Heritage Ambassador Mike Dyer, and we have Chief Bonehead Roy Delgado with us. So if you are interested in Klipsch loudspeakers, in audio, in music, in the history of hi-fi, you have come to the right place. We've got a full agenda tonight, but welcome, gentlemen.
Howdy.
What are we drinking, guys? We have to have a little toast, maybe.
I know what I'm drinking. It's but like chelada because I miss South Texas.
What are you drinking, Mark?
I'm having a delicious Spindrift grapefruit.
Oh, fantastic.
Hey, bro, why don't you send me some of that?
And Mike, what do you have at arm's length?
I have my Bucky's cup drinking the Snowbird Special, which is vodka and lemonade.
Fantastic. I have fake beer in a glass bottle tonight. Usually red wine in a metal cup, but I'm in the office and we have rules.
Well, I was just going to say, it's good that one of us, it's good we've got a DD here.
Stay on the road. Oh, fantastic. Well, let's give a little shout out to our founder, Mr. PWK. And here's to Paul Klipsch.
Early happy birthday.
On March 9th would have been 121 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. Cheers.
Mr. K.
Well, welcome everybody. We've got a lot to get through. I want to start off first and foremost by talking about, we're going to drop this at the beginning and at the end so people have the ability to connect. We are having an auction for the new La Scala AL6. It's a special edition, and Roy will tell us why, but I want to thank Bill Hendricks for his generosity. He actually won the bid for this, donated the money, and donated the speaker back. So we are auctioning off again. Roy, can you tell us a little bit about what they'll be getting if they win the auction?
Well, what they'll be getting is the serial numbers would be La Scala AL PP 001 and 002. PPs for pre-production. It is the updated La Scala that actually they'll have a choice of either black or walnut with a DSP processor and passives in it. It's the new La Scala that's coming out with that's been horn loaded or it's got a horn-loaded vented system, just like the Jubilee, in order to extend the bottom end down. A new mid-range driver. It's actually the one we use in cinema. It's a 3-inch titanium driver with a brand new Tractrix and infected with the mumps. And the tweeter will now have a wide dispersion phasing plug. So, kind of a few, some minor changes.
Just a few changes and upgrades, and we're going to do a deep dive into the AL6 today while we're talking about that, and get a little into the La Scala history. But we'll post a link in the chat if you would like to take part in the auction. Again, all of the money goes to benefit the Klipsch Museum of Audio History, who brings us this this live stream, the Listening Lounge. So it's a great way to invest in great audio, but also help out a good cause. Well, great. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about the AL6. A deep dive. What was the impetus for the upgrade, for the change?
What started it all really was we got a call from our vendor that said that the 401 horn, which is the current mid-range horn in the Khorn La Scala, that the tool after it must have been a really cheap steel, I guess, because after about 31 years it wore out, and we're either going to have to make a new tool or do something different. And Paul Klipsch in 1996, I believe, and I have a copy of the letter because I was it meant a lot to me because it showed just how much he trusted in me. It said that any new horns design had to be tractors, and so the 401 horn, because much like Paul lived a long life, was the only exponential horn that we still had in any Klipsch product. And so I decided that if we're gonna spend the money to tool a new horn, we ought to make it a tractor. And that's kind of snowballed all the other changes that came along with it too.
That's incredible.
Well, Roy, you said it was in 1996 you received this letter. You were
Yes.
a newbie. You'd only been working with Mr. K, what, 10 years at that point?
About 10 years, yep. Yep. And it it's funny because we started playing around with Tractrix about, I guess, when Dr. Edgar showed up. It was probably about 88. He showed up, and Paul and I had already started discussing, and this is kind of the stuff that I kind of take it for granted, but back then it was still kind of I guess in the vein of Paul Klipsch, him just being weird, in that he was never content. And so we had started down this path about trying to figure out, is there anything better that we could use for whether it's combinational equation or some sort of equation to use for maximizing efficiency and horns. And Dr. Edgar came to visit him. And Dr. Edgar, he was the editor and the founder of Speaker Builder. And he saw me walk by. He called me in and introduced me to Dr. Edgar, and he told me, tell Bruce what you're working on. And so I told him, and he says, Roy, I have this article that I wrote in 1981 that I'll send you, and it was about his fascination with tractors, which was an equation that Mr. Paul Voigt had investigated back in the 30s, and Paul knew of it. He actually knew of Voigt and the stuff that he was doing, because he had also developed kind of a console corner horn. And that little introduction, him sending me the speaker builder article, me reading it, programming a computer to start spitting out data, is what started that 10-year journey, Mike, on how gathering the data and stuff. But I reached the limit because, I'm a tinkerer. I don't live up here like Paul Klipsch. So in walks a friend of mine that was at UT, who was doing his thesis on the various contours, and he read an article that we'd written in audio. Came up to visit us, and he wanted to include Tractrix in his study. And through that, because John could speak Paul Klipsch in this high level, when he wrote his dissertation, he sent me one, and I gave it to Paul, and I said, Paul, here's why Tractrix works. And he read it and read it and read it. And then about a year later is when he wrote that letter. So thank you, John Post.
That's fantastic. And for newbies, anybody who might be just listening, the Tractrix is the curve of the horn. It is the angle and then the curve equation that allows the horn to disperse in a specific way. So it's important to note that we've tried many different horns over the years. We've tried all kinds of things since the beginning in 1946, but Tractrix is so far the most, what would you call it? You said everything is a compromise, but Tractrix is the most agreeable.
Well, it gives us the most advantages.
Yeah.
Without so many of the disadvantages.
Well, I remember when we introduced the Tractrix back in the early 90s, I guess.
Early 90s, yeah.
And I remember I had a conversation, and again, let no one on this in this group think that I'm trying to profess to be an engineer. I'm at one end of the spectrum, we've got Roy. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got a box of rocks, and then they got me down below. So.
But I slept at a Holiday Inn, Mike.
But I remember, talking to Mr. K and Roy and Carrie and Hunter, and we were down in Hope talking about the conversion from exponential horns to Tractrix. And I remember specifically, I said, Mr. K, you always said that you liked exponential horns because they were the absolute lowest in fundamental IM distortion. And he said, yeah. He said, but to make a compromise to get, and it was, and again, I'm not an engineer, but a smoother power curve into the room and more even sound coverage everywhere so that the speakers didn't beam as much. The exponential were fundamentally lower in distortion, but there was 3 or 4 things that the Tractrix horn did much better, and that the compromise was a better sounding speaker going to the Tractrix. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, Roy, or Mark, you were there at the time.
Well, you know what, and that was a lot of the data that we were choosing, that we were running, and I was showing Paul, but also because of the paper that John Post wrote. Because John Post would come often and talk to Paul too, because Paul is very interested in the work he was doing, trying to get his doctorate in acoustics.
Well, if you guys have a second, I'm going to have Brittany share my screen, and I'll take you guys on just a little bit of a history lesson for the Wayback Machine. Let me see if I can get this to share. Window. Let's try here. Okay. How about that? So when we're talking about the La Scala, invented in 1963, it was originally invented as a PA speaker for Winthrop Rockefeller's gubernatorial campaign. Paul Klipsch wanted something that was industrial, that could be didn't have to be in a corner, and could use it to really throw audio, really project far. So it was a fully horn-loaded system. We even made an industrial version of it that's still used to this day in clubs. You see the industrial La Scalas, and these come up for sale from time to time. They were advertised.
And Matt, when you see that box, it's so iconic. You know it's a La Scala. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when there's no like, it kind of looks like, no, there's no kind of stuff.
And I have on that the previous slide, I have to admit it's a timeless look.
Oh! I didn't even notice her.
Well,
I was looking at the speaker.
Oh yeah. I was talking about the speaker.
This ad from Rolling Stone magazine, you have Paul's legendary wit here, which the headline is just "Up Your System," which could be taken in so many different ways. Love this. So I want to show you guys something that probably the world has never seen outside of maybe a handful of people. Here is Paul W. Klipsch's original drawing for the La Scala, and it is a napkin sketch.
Oh my God.
So that's the original figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3 when he had the idea. And you notice figure 2 is the horizontal orientation for the low frequency.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a really cool piece. Thanks to the Klipsch Museum of Audio History for preserving this and sharing these images with us. But the new version, I also want to mention, will come out in a new color as well. And that color is American Auburn. And I don't have La Scala pictures in American Auburn, but I do have.
It's gorgeous.
The Klipschhorn American Auburn pictures.
Oh baby.
So this is the new finish that you'll be able to order, both the new Klipschhorn and La Scala, and you get an idea of the crossover of the DSP there on the table as well. You can kind of see what that will look like. So these things are gorgeous. What a cool color. So there's a little bit about the history of the La Scala. Again, we want to say that we are having an auction for the very first pair pre-production model. So please click on the link and take a look, and if you can contribute, because it does help out the museum. I want to. Is there anything else, Mark? We haven't heard from Mark. Mark, what do you want to say about the La Scala?
Well, if people haven't heard the La Scala, I think what blew me away early on as a dealer was you look at it and you think, oh, that's a rock speaker, that's going to knock me out. But I think the first time I heard a jazz trio on La Scalas with a piano, I was just, my jaw hit the floor, just how real a piano sounds through it. It's just so clean and low in modulation, harmonic distortion. And everybody knows how complex a piano is, but when you feel like you're in the presence of a jazz trio and the piano, most difficult instrument, is right there, it just speaks volumes of how accurate this system is and why people it's beloved around the world and people who are passionate about their music. But with all that, and Roy hasn't gotten into all the tech yet, but when it came out, I mean, in '63, the year before I was born, it was state of the art then. It's state of the art now. And what we're doing now to keep it, to maintain that level of state of the art, it's so exciting. It's just so exciting that we're carrying the torch of PWK. So that's just a quick summary for me, how I feel about the La Scala.
So let's talk a little bit about that deep dive into the La Scala. Some people may know about the active crossover. Some people may not, but I'd love to know why some of those decisions were made and really what's it all about.
I was forced into it, man.
Yeah, like anyone could force Roy into something, right?
Well, it's right off the trail of the Jubilee, right?
Yep.
We then we get the news about the horn and stuff, and right off the bat, I'm thinking we got to go active. and 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 we can do, use the same processor, just program it differently for, a three-way system. And we went into, so I went into this, and I'm doing the K horn and the La Scala active, and we had, let me see, oh yeah, these boneheads, Matt and Mike, saying, what if what we're talking three-way, bro, and two channel amp, tube amps, which a lot of people do with K horns and La Scalas. So when I say forced, they made me look at a passive so that we could offer it both ways. And I kind of went into this mode. I said, "You want a passive? I'll give you a passive, bro." And and since I already had, preliminary settings for the active system, I had a target. And so what I attempted to do in the passive is to do uh, as many of the EQ settings that I had in the active into a passive. And passives are limiting in that you don't have a constant impedance. It changes so much. You can use it to your advantage sometimes, and sometimes they kind of give you the middle finger. Especially when you're trying to deal with a peak that you're trying to tame down. Um, so I got it as close as I could. And I was looking at my libraries. I was hoping I'd have it so I could, give it to Britt to put on there. But to kind of give you an idea of where we ended up with a passive frequency response versus an active frequency response. And with an active, I was able to flatten it out some more, but they overlay pretty equally. There are some, peaks and some dips that can't be addressed with passives that I can in an active. But overall, they follow the same trend. And so when you listen to the passive system, as we did today, by the way, Andy and Ryan were in Hope today to listen to the Khorn La Scala. And basically, you can hear some of the flattening out, of course. But one of the biggest differences that you can hear is something that you can't do passively, and that is delay and adjusting phase in order to get maximum output at crossover. But I don't want to say this, but I have to be honest. Um, the um, the passive system sounds really good. The active just gets you that, as Paul would say, we got to pay attention to that 20% that no one else does, and the active gets you that 20%. But the biggest deal though is the actual delay. When you have a horn loaded LF, there's no way to compensate for the amount of delay because the woofer horns are so long. And so that difference, and it's funny because I tend to overlook all the other stuff. I mean, if we had just done a mid-range horn upgrade, that in itself would have been enough because there is a difference. I mean, and I think that this is one of the things, Paul and I, or Mr. K, is very much into data. It was in the data, but ultimately, you still have to use these, he would say. And so that the data points to what it should sound like, but then the ears verify it. And so when you listen to it, just the tractor stuff um, would have been enough to warrant a upgrade, an update to a La Scala. But then on top of that, the phasing plug and the tweeter, new passives, And then, of course, the horn-loaded vented system. The La
Mhm.
Scala was the first clip speaker I ever owned, and I bought it when I first started working for Klipsch because I had never heard of Klipsch. And Paul, slapped me around a couple of times for that. But when I did buy the La Scalas, it just because we also used to use them for my brother and I had a band, and we used to use them for PA. And then we also used to use them. We were mixing demos at the time. We also used to use them for playback for our demos. And so it's always had a special place in my heart. So we got to the point where I really liked the way the passes sounded, and I started listening. As I always do, I always get like the one on top, and of course the one on the bottom, the K horn, and then the Cornwall, and I listened to the La Scala, and I thought, if we could just get 10 more hertz, from 50 to 40. And 10 hertz sounds weird, but it's in the 10 hertz range that counts. As Mike being a bass player, Mike and
Well,
Mike being a drummer.
it's better than a half an octave.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is weird if you just think of, in numbers, 10 hertz, right? Because 500 to 510 doesn't sound like a big deal, but 40 to 50 does. And so, I told the guys that we have some time, let's play. And so we tried several things, and ultimately, and about 10 cabinets later, we ended up with a 12-inch woofer inside the La Scala, which Hunter reminded me at Paul Klipsch, the original La Scala and the original Klipsch horn had 12-inch woofers in it. Not 15s, 12s. And so we ended up, but this isn't your typical 12 either. So we ended up with a 12, and then we ended up with basically two of the Cornwall ports that are shooting right into the throat of the horn, like the Jubilee. And when I heard that, I said, "Yeah, I think we're there," because now it has that growl, that
That
clean bass.
that special 12-inch driver. You talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the K33 had the 2-inch voice coil, 50-ounce magnet structure, which for a K horn who has a much bigger backyard chamber works really, really well. The La Scala is undersized. At first, we played with I thought maybe it's the horn flare rate, and no, that wasn't it. I thought, well, maybe if I give it more backyard chamber. So I didn't want to change because I made Jerry Calhoun a promise that I would not, I wouldn't change certain parts of the La Scala.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't. He's bigger than me, and I didn't want him to hurt me, because there's a reason that there's more unaccounted for murders in this county. Okay, I didn't want to be one of those boys, and so then I started playing with, well, let's see if we can horn load vent the system into the horn. We went one port, we went 2 ports, we went 4 ports, and we ended up with 2 of the Cornwall ports. So with that woofer, with a 3-inch voice coil, 70-ounce magnet structure, a very light diaphragm, was just perfect. It worked perfectly. So now we have a 3-inch voice coil woofer in the La Scala. Mr. K would probably haunt me if I rated it more than 100 watts, because an interesting backstory to why all the heritage speakers are, or his speakers originally were always 100 watts, is because he was concerned that people would hurt their hearing. And he said, so I figure 100 watts ought to be loud enough for anybody that has consumed any spirits.
Yeah. If that's a 20 decibel jump. Yeah, it's a 20 decibel jump from that 1 watt rating. That's significant sound pressure.
Yeah, it's a bit. so so that's why he says people are really concerned about how much power they put into the speaker, so let's just make it it was agreed with him and the other him that he would rate them at 100 watts.
Mhm.
He really did never think that people want to put 1,000-watt amplifier behind him anyway. You know, I mean, to him, 10 watts was a lot.
Mhm.
That's right.
Mhm. Mhm.
10
So
watt
he's
amplifier
man,
saved the
man.
world.
He
Well,
was,
I
I'm
want
sorry,
to
man, go ahead.
I want to make sure that we are staying on track, but that is really great information. I mean, people learn just to learn all of the thought that went into this new upgrade for the La Scala and the Klipsch horn. Um, it's not just another revision. It's a complete rethink of, especially with the active network and the time alignment. That's huge.
Yeah, and it isn't, and this is probably why I cause several people in the company heartburn, is because they also talk about timelines and how things happen. You, Paul Klipsch used to have a saying about you know you can't time creativity when things just come to you. You know what I mean? And if there was a cookie cutter thing that I had to follow, the La Scala wouldn't be a horn loaded Venice system today. It's just one of those things that you listen to him and you go like, let's try this. uh, Senor Delgado, come here. I want to try this. Senor Delgado, come here. What do you think of this? And it's just not one of those things that like from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I will be creative.
Right. You can't force it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
isn't
It
there a
comes to you when
saying
it comes to you.
Well,
invention is not of
I want.
necessity?
Sorry, Mark, but I want to throw something in here, and please take this in the positive light. But I've worked for a number of different speaker companies over the last 50 years, and a lot of speaker companies come out with new speakers for the sake of coming out with new speakers, because then they get to sell all new speakers to the dealers, and the dealers get to sell all new speakers to the consumers, and it generates a new generation of sales. And maybe it's and maybe and with all due respect to Matt and the marketing community, a lot of the new products and the new technology come out of the marketing lab, not the engineering lab. It's like, let's come up with a new material that we can talk about for the tweeter, or some new whiz bang. At Klipsch, it was always based on, let's use science and engineering to try and get closer to perfection. We'll never get there. There's no such thing as a perfect loudspeaker. But Mr. K always established his 4 parameters of what would create appropriate and most accurate reproduction of live music. And so when we can come up with something that does that, we'll put it into production. When we can't, we don't. And that's why, we've got speakers that have been in the line for 75, almost 80 years now. We've got, and we don't come out with new stuff just so we can sell more speakers. We come out with new stuff because it's better and it's more accurate, and it puts the orchestra in your house. And the punchline of this, it's also the reason that Mr. K created the little yellow button that's so famous. There's so many, those of you that may or may not know this, Klipsch has and has for decades and decades a little yellow button that's, pardon my language, says bullshit. And that was created by Mr. K because he got so sick and tired of competitors coming out making these wild, ridiculous claims of technology that didn't there. Thank you, Matt. That didn't exist. So, so when Klipsch comes out with something new and exciting, pay attention, because it's new and exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for wrapping that up. Unfortunately, I've got to be the bearer of bad news. We've got to move on to the next topic, but it's a fantastic topic. In honor of Paul W. Klipsch, coming up is the Klipsch Pilgrimage. So If you don't know what the Klipsch Pilgrimage is, for years, it originally started with Klipsch fans determining that they were going to get together and come and see what was new, what was shaken at the factory, get to listen to the new stuff. But it was built out of passion, and it still is. So there's a groundswell of fans, people watching this video right now, that are excited about the product and want to talk about the history and want to talk with other enthusiasts. So this year's Klipsch Pilgrimage is March 7th through 8th in Hope, Arkansas. And we have an entire long list of amazing activities that we'll go through, and we'll let you guys know what are happening. But I want to make sure that everybody knows, for the Klipsch Pilgrimage, there is only one event that's ticketed, and that is the Chief Bonehead class. That there is a fee for that educational event, but everything else is free. The music, the live music, the listening to Klipsch speakers, the tours of the Klipsch Museum of Audio History.
Food.
Yes. Fajitas. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Roy, tell us what's going on. Tell us what's first of all about the Chief Bonehead class. We're going to put a sign up link if anybody wants to take the class and learn about speaker building or speaker design. Tell us a little bit about Chief Bonehead class.
You're muted.
You're muted, dude. Can't hear you.
No, I can. It's not muted.
There you are.
There you go. Oh,
How about now?
there you
You're
go.
good. Oh, not again.
No, I'm kidding. Ha ha. Oh, Mark.
Got me.
Yes, sorry, Billy Bob. The Chief Bonehead classes actually came out of part of the pilgrimage. They used to be called Juke Fest, and then we started doing other topics and stuff. And then when we got into the museum, we kind of continued that those kinds of classes. This year's Chief Bonehead class during the birthday bash is we're going to do the same thing we did with the La Scala that we with the class we did in November. We're going to listen to the Khorns in the new finish, by the way, the Auburn finish. We're going to listen in the morning. We're going to listen to them in a passive mode, and then after lunch, we're going to listen to them in the active mode. So they'll get to hear the iconic Klipsch sound of the speaker. Basically, it's why I'm here. Why Mark, you're here. Why Mike? I mean, he started the company with the Klipsch horn. I always get a lot of questions about, we've done some upgrades with passive networks and changed some drivers and stuff, but the La Scala, the Khorn LF remains as Paul has designed, because how do you? I mean, I can't think of anything that I could, or that Paul and I even ever talked about, other than the Jubilee, of how you could improve that. It's still the same. The main differences, or the main changes to the AK7, again, is because we replaced the exponential horn with Tractrix, with this new compression driver, and with these new passives and in an active system too. So the LF, I think the only thing we changed on the LF is the input panel.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And it has the dispersion tweeter, wide dispersion.
I'm talking about the LF.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
On the LF, we changed the input panel, and that's really it.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
the K33, still the K33, right?
K33, the same construction. And I remember when I was showing Paul some of the new build techniques, and Paul didn't grow up with a computer, okay, and so I was showing him some of the programs I was using and how we were putting this thing together as a puzzle now. And he said, you could have saved me a lot of effort. And can you imagine Paul Klipsch with a solid model program today?
No, oh my God, it would blow your mind.
Oh, that computer drive would be smoking with
Roy,
all the stuff that he would be trying
Roy,
to do, because
Roy,
huh?
he had the solid. He had that program in his head in 1945.
I know, but if he could put that in a computer, can you imagine how much more room he? Oh, oh my gosh! I mean,
Well, if you're going to attend the Bonehead class, which by the way takes place in the Klipsch lab, so you're able to, yeah, you're able to see the anechoic chamber.
Yep.
You're able to listen, and then learn about not only the new stuff but just fundamental horn speaker design.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so even if you're a newbie, just we'll throw you in the deep end, and you can just sit and listen.
Yeah, and you get to look at the tech benches and see what an absolute mess they are.
Hey Mike, I'm sorry you have to leave, bro. Oh my God, yeah. You know what? We try to clean up, but then if we did that, then we would forget where we were at. What did Paul Klipsch? An uncluttered desk is a sign of a sick mind.
So the Chief Bonehead class is part of the pilgrimage,
Yes.
but really it's in the City of Hope. It's in the 4 different buildings of the campus of the Klipsch Museum of Audio History. While you're there, there's going to be live music. Actually, I'm going to go through the list, and we've got a couple of people to thank here real quick. I want to give a shout out to Jenny, Donna, Karen, Craig, Eldon, Christy, and Rita for prepping the visitor center
And
Zane.
And Zane.
And Zane. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. We could not do this without our volunteers to make this happen. So the birthday bash is over a couple of days. And bear with me. I just want to walk through the schedule a little bit. But on Friday, March 7th, there is a free Klipsch Museum of Audio History tour led by curator Jim Hunter. He's going to walk you through the museum and talk about the history of hi-fi and the dawn of great audio.
That's a real treat.
Oh man, if you've been on Hunter's tour, if you haven't taken it, you should. And if you have the ability to stop in and listen to what he has to say, it's amazing. So 5 p.m. there's going to be
information.
At 5 p.m. there's going to be a wreath laying at Mr. Klipsch's grave. So you will go to the Klipsch grave site. There'll be a wreath put on there. How old would you say he had been? 121?
121. Right? Yeah, he was born in 1904.
Wow. At 6 p.m. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's funny because Paul passed away when he was 98, but he always acted like he was going to live to be 150.
I love that.
They'll live beyond that.
At 6 p.m. that night, there is the Klipsch annual museum membership meeting. So if you are a member, or if you would like to be a member before and sign up for membership, visit klipschmuseum.org. But the members meeting is that night. There's lots of stuff talked about. We present plans for the next year. We talk about what we're going to be doing, as well as have the opportunity to make some decisions about the direction of the museum.
And board member election too.
And board member election. Yeah, klipschmuseum.org. Thank you, Travis. And at 6 p.m., there is also free music and barbecue at the Klipsch Museum Visitor Center and at the Paul W. Klipsch Auditorium in City Hall. So 2 locations that night where we're going to be listening to loudspeakers of all sorts. There'll be one sound system will be listening to what will be provided for the Bonehead class. The other one in the auditorium is going to be taking requests, and you can listen to Klipsch systems there. So we will have plenty of room for as many people come, and we can play the songs you'd like to hear on some really amazing Klipsch systems.
Yeah, in fact, the system in the auditorium is a is a cinema system that I re-EQ'd so that you don't have to have a screen in front of it with an 1802, just because we can.
Wow. Because you want to shake the plaster in there. And again, all those things we mentioned on Friday are free, 100% free. Just stop by, and we'd love to have you. Love to have you see what we're all about. On Saturday, March 8th, the next day at 9 a.m., Chief Bonehead class, and that is an all-day class led by Chief Bonehead himself, Principal Engineer Roy Delgado at the Klipsch Factory and Lab. It is a ticket is required for it, and we will post the link to be able to sign up for it. There is a fee for that, but it is an amazing class. It's a one-of-a-kind thing. You'll never get that efficient of an education in a very short time. And then at 6 p.m. At the Klipsch Museum Visitor Center, Chief Bonehead is going to be grilling fajitas, and we will have live music. I think our friend Matt Watley is playing.
Yeah, Matt. I forget.
They're like called the Peepaw Collective.
Yeah, the Peepop Collection. It's him and his buddy. They're gonna do an acoustic set from 5 to 5:45, and then Lee and his band are gonna come up and play
Really?
from 6 to 8. Yeah,
Cool.
And that's all free, including fajitas.
Yep, including the fajitas. Unless you want a special portion of fajita, it might cost you a beer or something.
So that's fantastic.
Oh, and we're also going to have chicken. We're also going to have chicken for those that like Yardbird, which I do.
So will they be fajita chicken or just some other sort of chicken?
Fajita chickens are hard to raise, so it might have to be.
Is it true that when we're eating the chickens, we're going to listen to nothing but the Yardbirds?
Who are those, Mike? Oh yeah, I forgot you're old, bro.
The jokes are getting worse by the moment. Oh my god. So yeah, please click on those links. I really want to. This is something we promise we'll do every time, and we hardly ever get to it. So I want to leave a little bit of time here. Questions from the audience. If you guys have a question, post it in the chat. Our guys will sift through them and get them to us. But now is your chance. You got 2 industry veterans here and 1 Chief Bonehead. Ask away. There's some I'm sure there's some questions you've been dying to ask. So this would be the time. We'll give it about 10 minutes for questions.
But in order to stop the flooding of questions, ladies, Matt is married. Okay. Because he's a cute feller.
Well, we just lost like 80% of our viewers.
Yeah, we would like to give a shout out to David Wilson, who's a graduate of New Mexico State, the class of '81, the year that Paul was given his honorary doctorate at his graduation. So thanks for letting us know about that, David. If you have any memorabilia that the museum could scan, that would be cool. We're always looking for people who were there on the scene of significant events like that. So pictures, anything to do with it, we'd love to have a donation to the museum, even if we can just scan it and get it back to you.
You know that another kind of unknown, kind of Paul kept it quiet was he started a scholarship program at New Mexico. And it was basically, he was giving back his alma mater, and that's just because that's the kind of person Paul was. He started a scholarship program, and I remember Paul, what he didn't like to talk about it because it was kind of his, his as he would say, his giving back to his Redeemer. So
that's really cool. Just an anonymous scholarship.
But yeah, he was really into just giving back, and he used to call it Cow College, New Mexico Cow College.
And I think it was College, right? Collich.
College, yes.
College.
Because back then it was New Mexico A&M.
Well, and the museum itself follows in those steps. The four of us here on screen and dozens and dozens and dozens of other supporters. Our goal, because again, a reminder, the museum has no financial association with the Klipsch loudspeaker company. We are flying on our own wings, and that takes money, and we need support. But all of us are here because Mr. K did something in our lives that we feel must be continued. And I tell people, without Mr. K, I might be out on a work release program by now. I don't know.
Well, Mike,
your life, bro.
Mike took a sojourn. He went on a spy mission with some other companies, and he came back home.
Mark, I've forgiven him already. Mark, grace is good.
Yeah, but there's still penance, though. There's still penance.
Penance, yeah.
Oh, so here's a question. I got a question for Mark. It's from an anonymous viewer. What is the sensitivity of the LS6?
Yeah, it's not anonymous, Travis, and it's highly sensitive. And that's the answer, Travis. Highly sensitive. Okay, smart guy behind the scenes.
Here's another question. Are we working on a new RF7?
Let's just say that as some of the stuff, because it's something that kind of relates back to what Mike brought up earlier. I had a friend of mine once ask me, how do you know, when I found out I was working for Klipsch or started working for Klipsch, he said, how do you know when somebody introduces something that it's real? And I said, well, unfortunately, you have to wait. If they use it in their next the next edition of that speaker lineup, then it was real. If they don't, then it was not real.
A marketing experiment.
Yeah, I mean, and so we keep building up on ours. The RF7 right now, the way it sounds, it's one of those things that we're not going to do an RF7 upgrade for the sake of doing an RF7 upgrade. It's going to have to be legit. There's going to have to be a reason to do one in the first place. Because honestly, particularly for those kinds of lines, we don't take that lightly. It has to be something that warrants. In fact, when I was doing the work for the Forte 4, I got to the point where, is this enough to warrant a rev going from a Forte 3 to a 4? And I felt it was a big enough difference in jump and the actual fidelity of the speaker that I thought it warranted a rev. So we're constantly doing stuff. Does it actually mean that we'll actually just come up with a Forte or a RF7 4 just for the sake of doing that? It has to warrant that.
Yeah, it has a lot of cool innovations that did percolate into the RP line. The Faraday rings, the titanium voice coils and the woofers. Advanced motor design for the woofers. I mean, that is a more traditional compression driver behind that horn, not to mention the matching center channel. So yeah, it would be, if there's an update, it would not be just a cosmetic or just because we're updating, for the sake of updating, like Mike alluded to earlier. So that's something that, it would take the R&D obviously behind it. And then somebody did ask, what is the actual sensitivity? It's the same. it's the same sensitivity as it is now. Do you know what that is? Travis, do you actually know what that is? That sensitivity rating? That's a question for Travis. Mike? Do you guys know the numbers? Okay, so go ahead. Tell everybody.
The answer is yes.
Oh, the answer is yes. Okay. So it's very it's
well, with all that line stage gain from the active crossover, it must be 2,000 dB efficient.
Well, that's what's interesting. The sensitivity.
Kidding, guys, kidding.
Well, everyone needs to know that with the networks and the new drivers, it's going to be on par. So that what is that? That's around 104, 105 dB with 1 watt. So it's obviously matched. The drivers are matched to each other, right, through the network, through the passive network. So to get a nominal power response and balanced sensitivity from all the drivers. So and then there was a question about Mike Beasley had an interesting question. Is Roy back?
Yes.
But did you hear some of that, Roy, about somebody who's asking, with the new horn, the wide dispersion phase plug, we got a 12-inch operating in similar cabinet. They're asking about sensitivity. We haven't broken down the specs yet, but I would imagine they're on par with the current.
Well, directivity and sensitivity can be very closely related. So if you have a sensitivity rating of 106, but you're doing it because you have a coverage pattern of 60/40, once because you have conservation of power and acoustic acoustic power. If I spread it out over a 90/60 pattern, all I'm doing is taking that concentrated energy and spreading it out more. What's going to happen to the on-axis? The on-axis sensitivity will drop because now you're covering a larger area because you still have the same amount of energy. All that to say that the sensitivity is probably going to be about 103, 104, but it's going to be over a more consistent coverage pattern.
Less beaming.
And power response. The total volume, the power response in the room.
Well,
Correct, Mundo.
I'm looking at the questions here, and I see a really good one from Adrian Kennedy. I frequently find myself arguing with people who like to tinker and think that dampening the horns provide an improvement. And my main argument is if PWK and all the engineers at Klipsch don't feel it's necessary, then why do you? Thank you very much, Adrian. Can you explain why it's not needed? They talk about harshness in the horns, the way they are, and I always hit the yellow button. God bless you. For the record, I know horns are not harsh. They are nature. Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Well, horns in the beginning, you have to remember every kind of acoustic reproduction used horns. And so what it came down to, who can do the best horns? And usually what that usually meant is the consistency of the acoustic power being emanated from a horn. If you had a horn that was not consistent in how it emanated that acoustic power into the room, then you had certain characteristics of sound that were accentuated and some that were not. Unfortunately, there is a lot of people that started coming out with horns that were not designed well. And people started, well, horns are shouty, horns are honky, horns are colored, because the majority of the horns after that initial push from Bell Labs and Western Electric started to rush to just get a horn loaded system out there, not really taking into account of the acoustics and the science of the expanding wave. And so when you'll have some horns that unfortunately the majority of them didn't sound very well, and so it became a hard deal to overcome. A lot of people would say, oh, it's a horn loaded system, it's going to sound honky, it's going to sound nasally, it's going to sound this or that, but then when you listen to it, a properly designed horn, you're going like, is that a horn system? Right. The problem I have with trying to come up with dampening horns and stuff is that has anybody ever done accelerometer tests on the actual walls of a horn to warrant dampening the sound? Plastics are good dampeners. Just inherently, they're good dampeners. And so if you make horn walls that are thick enough, that are braced enough, it's like paying attention. You're at a 5-alarm fire and you're worried about the color of the hose. there are more things to be worried about than the color of the hose. How
I think I'm
about
gonna borrow that one. I'm going to borrow that.
how about there's a guy on fire, and maybe
Yeah.
you ought to tend to him and forget the
Yeah.
color of the hose. Let's spray please. Let's spray some water on it.
So
If you ever get to the point where you have to worry about dampening of the horn, then you've solved a lot of other problems.
That's fantastic. Well, and on that note, I know we are out of time, but this is the kind of information you can get in the Chief Bonehead class.
Yeah.
These are the kind of one-on-one conversations you can have with the Paul Klipsch protege himself. So it's just super important that people understand what's happening with the museum and what's happening with loudspeaker development right now. If you're interested in this at all, you might consider coming to the Bonehead class. You might definitely swing by the pilgrimage. There are links to both of those online, so you can click and join the auction if you choose to. We are going to make the announcement of the winner of the auction next month on the next live stream. So the winner will be declared live on the air, and we'll see who wins the auction. And then
It's March 20th, right?
March
Matt?
20th, yes.
Yeah.
And then we also want to remind folks of the Bonehead class. There's a link there if you want to take that. But please stop by the museum if you're anywhere near the area. Swing by for the pilgrimage activities. They're all free except the Bonehead class. So we'd love to have you. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. This has been fabulous. As always, let's continue to do this. So many questions come up. I want to also thank the audience for being here and the team behind the scenes. Brittany, Glenn, and Denise and Travis, thank you guys so much for herding the cats that we are. Please follow the museum. Please follow the museum on Facebook and YouTube. We are serializing all kinds of stuff. There's a complete museum tour on Facebook. We are publishing the history of the Klipsch horn on Facebook. So please check it out.
Those are amazing, Matt. The history of the cave horn. I mean, those little. Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
I'm so glad you like those. We're having so much fun. Hunter and I are having a great time putting that out. So we appreciate all
the museum.
Yes,
Matt,
support the museum.
Matt and Mike and Roy, I mean, thank you to you guys and all of our faithful fans and customers and employees, where we're keeping this living audio history alive, and it's living audio future. It's a bedrock that we want to go another 80 years, and this is how we do it.
And I forget who it was, but somebody mentioned they've got a pair of heresies in Brazilian rosewood. Yeah. Dude, you rock.
Yeah,
those are so cool.
And don't
they were so expensive.
They're illegal to ship overseas now, so keep them, brother.
Don't let the EPA know. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys all later. Take care.
Love you guys.
Cheers.
You probably know that the most important part of any audio system is the speakers. This is the Klipsch speaker here. It's been a well-respected name for over 25 years. You're getting real value for your money here.
Oh?
These are horn-loaded both in the mid-range and the high frequency, so they provide for the greatest amount of efficiency. I think you'll hear that you can get that full sound you want just by adding a set of these speakers.
Won't I need a bigger amplifier?
No, not at all. Let me show you. A cleaner sound for the background music while in your dining room, and you'll get less distortion than with your present system when you turn up the gain for higher sound levels.
That's incredible.